so the man's mother took out a loan and made the change. His father, who worked for the railways, began to study English at his own expense on the slight possibility that he might have to guide a foreigner to the right place. Everyone, it seemed, was catching Olympic fever, even his neighbor. In the summer of 1964, we had less rain. When I sprinkled water on the street in front of my house, a neighbor got angry with me saying, "Save water for the foreigners," as if he regarded me as an unpatriotic man. The Japanese were determined to show the world that they could host the Summer Olympic Games, the first in Asia, and regain the world's trust after the upheaval of the Second World War. Nothing could distract them from this mission, not even the clamor of geopolitical conflict and social change taking place in and around the 2 weeks of the Tokyo Olympics, October 10th to 24th. And there were lots of distractions. Only 2 months before the start of the Olympics, on August 4th, a battle between U.S. and North Vietnamese military boats was said to have taken place in the Gulf of Tonkin, with a second attack said to have taken place 2 days later. In consequence, the U.S. Congress passed a resolution which in effect justified the deployment of U.S. conventional forces in Vietnam to defend against communist aggression. On September 24th, only 10 months removed from the assassination of American President John F. Kennedy, the Warren Commission, headed by Supreme Court Chief Justice Earl Warren, presented its 888-page report to President Lyndon B. Johnson with the hopes of diffusing the growing rumors of widespread conspiracy. On October 3rd, only a week prior to the start of the Tokyo Olympics, 57 East Berliners nervously walked through a tunnel dug under the Berlin Wall to escape to freedom in West Berlin. On the third day of the 1964 Tokyo Olympics, October 12th, the Soviets took the world by surprise, launching the first three-man spaceship in history into orbit. The Voskhod circled the Earth 15 times, raising the rhetoric on which superpower was winning the space race. On October 14th, the fifth day of the Tokyo Olympiad, one of the most powerful men in the world, USSR First Secretary Nikita Khrushchev, was deposed from power by his own Communist Party, news that stunned the world. That same day, it was announced that Martin Luther King Jr. had won the Nobel Peace Prize. 2 days later, the People's Republic of China detonated an atomic test bomb, sparking fears of atomic fallout over Japan, the only nation to have suffered nuclear attack. It is incredible to think that so much of global significance happened that autumn of 1964, particularly during those 2 weeks of the Tokyo Olympiad. And yet, it seems relatively few were tuned into the raucous geopolitical noise of the time. When informed afterwards, many of the participating athletes were surprised to hear so much was happening in the world around them. In retrospect, they realized they were deep in their cocoon of concentration. But so were the people of Japan. Only 19 years after the physical and moral devastation of defeat at the end of World War II, after the humiliation of foreign rule into the early 1950s, Japan's attention was wholly focused on hosting an Olympics that would stand out in the annals of the event. It is, of course, hyperbole to call any year the greatest year in a country's history, as is the case in this book's title. But one can argue that the 18th Olympiad, held in Tokyo, Japan in October 1964, has become a symbol of the immense collective joy of the time, a cathartic release from the psychological purgatory of defeat in the Pacific War, subjugation by the enemy, and the painstaking recovery from destitution and despair. Never was the nation more aligned. Never was the nation prouder than in 1964, rising from the rubble to embark on the greatest Asian economic miracle of the 20th century. The only thought most Japanese had in October 1964 was to convince the world that Japan was peaceful, friendly, productive, innovative, and modern, that they belonged to the global community as much as any other nation. It is perhaps a measure of their success that despite all the surrounding turmoil, the games they produced came to be known as the Happy Olympics. Chapter 1. A Feeling of Doom. A Dutch Judo